Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov gang. We have a very special guest with us this evening, Aaron Shuster, a producer and writer. And he is here this evening to discuss Obama's true intentions and several other things. Aaron, what an honor and a privilege to have you back on the Glazov gang.
My pleasure to be here, Jamie. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. I want to talk about Obama's true intentions this evening. I also want to talk to you about leftist Hollywood, several other phenomena. But before we get to that, introduce yourself a little bit to our viewers.
Well, I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, where I was born and raised. And, you know, Canada tends to be a more left-wing country, so I grew up in that environment of a country that's more social service dependent, I would say, than the United States. And as I began to mature in university particularly, I began to realize that in life, no one hands you anything, that the things that you achieve in life, you fight for. So I started questioning, well, if I have to fight for things, why do I want to give away things to people who aren't fighting as hard as me?
But you were a leftist at one time in your youth.
Yes, but I would say it was more being a product of the culture I was left, but not I wouldn't say it was very seriously formed. So as I began to mature and gain my own knowledge about the world and writers I began to be attracted to, I realized that I don't even want to say I'm a conservative, but so much as an individualist. Like, I believe in individualism and I believe in the power of the individual.
But there was somewhere along your journey where you realized that people had to work for things, and
Right.
then you experienced some cognitive dissonance in terms of why you wanted to redistribute if people weren't working.
Correct. So I began to realize that in life, you have to work hard for the things you want to achieve. No one hands them to you. And there's people who had an expectation of just being given without working.
How is this a delegitimization of the Marxist utopian dream?
Well, strangely, in some ways it's not, because I think Marx said, "He who doesn't work doesn't eat." So that seems to be something that's forgotten on the left.
No.
Didn't he say that? It was a Lenin? One of them.
No, but overall, when the government believes that the cure for social ills belongs in government institutions, and there's no reciprocal rights and obligations, problems begin.
Well, yeah, that's again, it brings me back to Rousseau, strangely enough, who believed in a social contract, that yes, the government may have obligations to the citizen, but the citizen also has obligations to the state, and part of that obligation is to work and, you know, to provide for the family, etc. It's not all to be given one direction.
Okay, so a wise Aaron Shuster abandoned or shed himself of, let's say, his leftist self to whatever degree it was. You ended up in Hollywood. Tell our audience about a great movie you made.
I made a film a few years ago called The Bank Job with
big.
Jason Statham. It's a bank heist film. I wrote the original story and got it produced.
Okay, so, and congratulations, Aaron.
you.
I saw the film. It was
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Hollywood, a conservative in Hollywood. Tell us about this experience.
Well, it can be a challenging experience if there's certain stories that you want to tell. I wouldn't say that there's an outright moratorium on pro-American stories. No one's going to tell that to your face, but you're running up against a culture that is more anti-American. They don't want to tell pro-American stories. I don't know if you saw, did you see the last Academy Awards?
Yes.
To me, it was like the Ho Chi Minh hour.
Right.
I mean, it was one leftist tenant after another.
Absolutely.
You know, it was
Yeah.
like it was like almost like the whole show had been orchestrated
Mm-hmm.
just to play out certain leftist ideologies, and then they wonder why their audience keeps dropping off.
Aaron, so when you left, let's say, the left when you were younger and also experiencing Hollywood as a conservative, can you talk a little bit about perhaps your alienation, your, being marginalized, the conflicts you run into on even a personal level? Have you been persecuted? Have you been excommunicated, demonized, dehumanized?
I can't say that I've experienced that per se. I mean, I find the doors are always open to me. But I can relate a certain story where actually after 9/11, Robin Moore, who wrote The French Connection, wrote a book called The Hunt for Bin Laden, which was really a book that was about how the Americans, very few American operatives, 600 basically, took over Afghanistan with the help of the Northern Alliance. And it was just the most incredible story, and I went around pitching it around Hollywood, and I could get no traction because in that case, I was told they didn't want to tell that story. They didn't want to tell a pro-American story. So I fought very hard. I even took my fight to Rupert Murdoch at Fox because I thought if anyone's going to get on my side, it would be him. But he sent me over to Tom Rothman, who was president of the studio at the time, who was a Democratic, powerful in the Democratic Party in Hollywood. So the whole project was basically shot down. Couldn't get any traction, as they say.
And what is the significance?
The significance is you have to be a Clint Eastwood to get that sort of a movie made. And even then, you can see by the last Academy Awards that the film won one Academy Award for sound editing, even though it's the most successful war film in the history of films in terms of its box office receipts. I think it's at 400 million.
What do you think is this phenomenon of Hollywood, of directors, of scriptwriters, of actors? Why do they gravitate towards the political faith?
That's a difficult question. I think people on the left tend to feel there's injustices in the world, and there certainly are. And there's obviously a lot of stories to tell about injustices.
But there's a
whatever they
narcissism
be.
because they're self-appointed redeemers. They believe that they can actually
Right,
fix things,
right.
right?
And Hollywood is willing to spend a lot of money getting the leftist message out in their films. You see it time and time again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I just want to add to that. I mean, we're all, interested and worried about injustices. We are too.
Right.
It's just that they have a particular selective indignation. That's a whole other subject, perhaps, and I think it's got a lot to do with their narcissism.
Well, and
they live in fantasy
there's an
worlds.
anti-Americanism at the heart of it. There's something, they talk about a self-hating Jew. It's kind of like a self-hating American.
Yeah.
They feel that America somehow is culpable for things that it's done, perceived things that it's done that have made, like you could say, like Reverend Wright at Obama's church said, the chickens have come home to roost, as if America had invited the attack on the Trade Center, the World Trade Center, by what it had done in the world.
Well, there's this belief in the left that whenever you see evil perpetrated by our adversarial regimes and ideologies, somehow we made them do it. There's a reluctance for people to believe that there's a core in that evil ideology that's at the root of what they're doing, like Islam, fascism, communism, etc. Aaron, what is haunting, perturbing, troubling you about today's world and its environment?
Oh, well, we see the rise of anti-Semitism going on across the world. We see ISIS and Islamic fundamentalism on the march. Islam making headways into Western civilization and starting to change the way our societies operate as the governments bend to their will to accommodate things that they're demanding. And as Oriana Fallaci said, the more Islam increases, the more we see freedom disappearing in the West. And that's troubling to me.
Aaron, Obama's intentions. naivete, destructive intent?
No, I think it's completely a destructive intent. I was listening to Dennis Prager this morning, and he says that he doesn't believe the left get together and plan things, but I have a different view of things. I think that they actually do get together and plan things, and I think this has been very well orchestrated from the outset. I mean, we know that George Soros, who's one of, financial backers of Obama's campaign, is someone who has admitted in his books that, he's orchestrated certain revolutionary acts in various countries where he's overthrown governments. And we see his influence through various NGOs, is that what they're called, that operate carrying his message and trying to stir up trouble in various ways. So I think Obama came into the White House with a very clear agenda of what he was going to do. And working with people like Bill Ayers, who helped lay out the plan. I mean, he's a Marxist, he knows his ideology, and we're seeing the results of all this planning. Now they're stirring up racial animosities.
Well, he's Obama's a disciple of Saul Alinsky, so that's all that needs to be said, even to begin with. Aaron, Obama referred to transforming America. He said we're 5 days away from beginning the transformation of America, and there's some people that would, when somebody like myself says that Obama doesn't love America, when Giuliani recently said that, people get really upset about it. How can a person love America if he wants to fundamentally transform it?
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, fundamental transformation has always been a euphemism for revolution. I mean, and that's basically what Obama's been pushing for. We don't know the effects of the amount of debt that he's increased the national debt to over the long run, but they say that he's spent more money than all the presidents that preceded him combined.
Okay, so let's start right there. Let's talk about some of the most destructive things that he has perpetrated. Let's begin with the debt. Ran it up. I think he began with the debt was somewhere at $7 trillion. It's almost 18 trillion now. It's 17 trillion, right? Let's move on. So in terms of
Cloward Piven said that one of the ways, I think there were two Marxist professors, the way to break the capitalist system is to run up the debt so high that it just implodes on itself.
Yeah, well, I remember when I was in academia and grad studies and around those faculty lounges, I heard the left conspiring. All those leftist professors and graduate students, it's exactly what they were saying. They were saying to get those welfare, the welfare industry up and up and up, and you get it to such an extent that the system collapses. Talk about foreign policy a little bit. ISIS, Afghanistan, Benghazi. I mean, he's really hurt American security interests.
Well, I don't think it's accidental that we see ISIS basically, running across various, they've expanded now into Libya, Algeria, Yemen, and all of them seem to be turning over governments that tended to be American friendly, if we can say that.
Yeah, he's hurt Israel as well.
He's hurt Israel. We understand that he has people, operatives from the Obama campaign are in Israel actively trying to throw the election against Netanyahu. So we have an American president who claimed he didn't want to meet with Netanyahu because he didn't want to interfere with the Israeli politics or the Israeli election, and yet his minions are in Israel campaigning for the other side, Labor.
Islam. That's a question.
That means submission.
What do you think about the threat that it poses and the denial in our civilization about it?
Well, I have a lot of deep issues with Islam as somebody who raised in Western civilization and a great lover of freedom and democracy. I have a lot of issues with the Quran, which if anyone takes the time to read it, will see that it's a lot of hateful ideology is embedded in that text. And I don't know, how do you divorce the text from the religion? I mean, it's an interrelationship that can't be split. And if you read someone like Alan Bloom, who talks about how does a society incorporate ideologies that are basically antithetical toward it.
Yeah, Aaron, we have about 2 minutes left. What can we do?
Well,
And what makes you tick? Why are you out there fighting? What do you recommend to people who care about freedom? What can they do?
I've been trying to do my little bit, but I'm hoping maybe people out there can also help. I mean, I was trying to make my own attempt to get people, conservatives, people who love democracy and freedom, who love America, they have to put their money where their mouth is, just like the left does. The left will make one anti-war, anti-American film after another. Even if the movie doesn't make money, it's important for them to get their message out. But it seems like conservatives and people on the right are not as willing to put their money where their mouth is. And I was trying to make attempts to reach people like Sheldon Adelson, to actually put up money to get involved in the film industry and tell the type of stories, pro-American stories, that, you know, we can turn things around. I mean, it's a two-way street, you know, but we need people who are willing to back the message.
Well, you've hit on a key theme there, that a lot of conservatives think they're fighting culture war by tuning out and canceling their cable. They got to enter the terrain,
right,
get into the movies, into cable,
right,
into films, etc.
The studios used to be more right-wing.
Yeah.
They were pro-American. In the 60s, there was a takeover, and the
Yeah.
left took over the studios.
Yeah.
And that's why it took a turn
Aaron,
for the worse.
Thank you. It was an honor and a privilege to have you on the Glazov Gang. Thank you for your contribution to the defense of civilization. I know you care a lot about it, and you're out there fighting.
I love America. That's why I moved here. I love the country. I love the ideology of the country. I think it's the greatest country on the planet Earth, and we have to fight to keep it. I took an oath when I became a citizen to do that, to fight enemies, both foreign and domestic. And there are many domestic enemies that we need to fight, and we cannot give up.
Thank you very much, Aaron Shuster. It was an honor to have you here.
My pleasure.
Thank you
Thanks,
for everything
Jamie.
that you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next week on the Glazov Gang. Good night.